All right, we're back on NBC Sports from the Vault, reliving one of the greatest college football games of all time. 2005, USC and Notre Dame. Jac Collinsworth, with two-time national champion, Heisman Trophy winner, Matt Leinart. First of all, Matt, the background looks pretty special behind you right there.
Isn't it right, man? I got a combination of my favorite athlete of all time, Kobe Bryant, and also the Bush push, man. I mean, what better? If you can zoom in there, I don't know, but you can see the Bush push. So I had that black and white picture. It was, going around, and our Arizona Cardinals team photographer actually blew it up for me on this canvas print. And it was up in my game room up in Arizona, and it's kind of followed me everywhere I've been. And we found some room, and I'm in my son's game room right now, so it's up on the wall. So it's only fitting, man, that we talk about this game with that in the background.
I'm glad that it has survived the test of time, as it should, as has this game. So big picture, going into the game, what were your true thoughts on playing at Notre Dame Stadium?
Well, I had, fortunately, in 2003, when I was a starter, we went to Notre Dame. So I had experience playing there in front of that crowd. And, sometimes in that game and in that rivalry, you don't want it to be bigger than it really is, because it can be. It's a huge rivalry. It's Notre Dame. It's touchdown Jesus. It's the aura and tradition when you step foot on that campus. And so in 2003, we won fairly easily. So we had some experience. In 2005, it was a much different feel for a lot of different reasons. One, we were going for a third national championship, and we just every week really felt the weight just of continuing to have to win games and try and compete for a third title. And then Notre Dame was a top 10 team. I mean, they were a really good football team. Brady, who's my buddy and my colleague at Fox now, he's a great quarterback. They had great players. And it felt different. I got to be honest with you, going into that team, it felt different. It felt like they really believed that they had a chance to win. And not that that was the feeling in years prior, but it just was a different feel. And we were ready for that. And it was just one of those games where, a couple plays that we don't make, it goes the other way. But I think that's what makes that game special. It was tight throughout the game. And then obviously at the end of the game, we were able to come back and win. But just great memories. The history in that stadium, that was the loudest. I'll say this, normally it isn't that loud there from my previous experiences, but that game was by far probably top 2 loudest stadiums I've ever been a part of in that day.
In colleagues now, what was your relationship like with Brady Quinn then, or was there one?
It was more rivals. We did not. I don't want to say we just didn't like each other because we were quarterbacks for rival football teams. We didn't know each other personally. We never really crossed paths on the award circuit and all of the stuff after this season. He was a year younger than me, but our friendship really kind of started probably halfway through our NFL careers. It was just some random thing. We never really spoke throughout that, and then all of a sudden we started talking, and then we became buddies, and now we're really close friends, and we work together at Fox, and we just have a blast together. We tell stories and all that. We do relive this game quite often. Reggie Bush is also one of our colleagues, but we weren't tight. We were rivals. The teams didn't like each other, and they were trying to knock us off.
In your eyes, how did the two teams compare coming into this game?
Well, there were a lot of similarities. Myself and Brady Quinn had a lot of experience. Brady won a lot of football games for them, a lot of big games. So he'd been in that type of environment. He wasn't, it wasn't like a first-year starting quarterback. Jeff Samardzija, who obviously chose probably the right path and has been pitching in the big leagues for, it seems like, a decade. He was a great receiver on the outside, 6'5", 6'6", and just a mismatch. They had really talented defensive players. Todd Zbikowski, their safety, is one of my favorite players. I think he was like a professional boxer, amateur boxer. He was a phenomenal player. So I think you just look at a lot of experience for both teams on both sides of the ball. Either team wasn't afraid to play each other. It wasn't too big. The moment wasn't too big, and they were ready. I mean, like I said, a play there, we don't convert on the 4th down or even the last play of the game, the Bush push. They win that football game, and history is kind of rewritten. So great talent on both football teams. They were a legit football team, and they had a great season.
How do you explain the talent of Reggie Bush when you would hand him the ball and stand back there, turn and watch him run? What was it like?
It's like a video game. It was. I had the best seat in the house every Saturday for 3 years. It was awesome. And I'll say this: just him on the field, and I think he's the best college football player of all time. I mean, you can argue, and there's so many different players, but he just, the talent that he was, and the speed and the highlight that he was every single time he touched the football, and playing for national championship games, and obviously having a massive impact on the outcome of those seasons and those games for us. There hasn't been very many players like him, if at all, in the way he impacted the game, the versatility and the special teams, the punt. He was as good of a, you see Christian McCaffrey now, and I always kind of like, there's a comparison there because of the way Christian McCaffrey is as good of a running back as he is receiver. Like he's a great receiver. Reggie was a great wide receiver. So he could just do so many things. And the thing that I always say about him when I'm asked about him is he had probably the best work ethic on the team. He was the hardest worker. We all worked really hard, but he was always trying to get better. He never settled. Even as great as he was always working to get better. And he had that drive. And that's why I always just appreciated him so much, because he wasn't lazy. He led by example. He led by his work ethic. And it's kind of fitting. We're all full circle working together now, covering college football, which is awesome.
And it was the 27-game winning streak, the back-to-back national titles. So what was the confidence level? Was it a cocky going into Notre Dame Stadium, or where did you guys stand in terms of confidence?
We were, cocky isn't the right word. We weren't arrogant. We were really confident in our ability, and we backed it up. I think that's every team has guys who will talk some trash, but Pete Carroll did a great thing. We never gave a team bulletin board material. He always said, listen, don't say anything stupid. We prove everything on the field come Saturday, come game day. So we worked harder. We competed harder than anybody those weeks in practice, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And that's why game day was it was a different feel. We were always ready. And we always knew every time we stepped on the field, we felt like we were going to win the game. One, because we were extremely talented. We had great players. We just had phenomenal players. We had a great coaching staff. And we just knew it. It was that confidence that you need, that all championship teams have. LSU this past year, you had it. You look at Joe Burrow, you don't need to look any further. The confidence that he exuded, and it wasn't cockiness. It was just like, I know every time that we step on the field, we're going to win the football game, and we're going to let our play do the talking. And that was our mindset for that run. And it was, there were a lot of times where, we were down, and there were a lot of times where probably teams gave us their best shot every week, and Notre Dame game included. And I can go to Fresno State, and I can go, Stanford my junior year in 2004, like games that we probably should have lost, but we just had that confidence where we knew, listen, we know it's a 4-quarter game. We'll play to the finish, and we'll find ways to win football games. So it was a championship set mindset, and that's how we approached every game.
So from the USC side, how is the Notre Dame rivalry viewed?
It's big. It's to me in that time, it's bigger than the UCLA rivalry. The UCLA rivalry is different. Crosstown, the Battle of LA, a little more pride. You know a lot of those kids on the team. You played with them in high school. You played against them. But in that time, UCLA they weren't a great football team, and nothing against them. They just, at that time, it wasn't much of a rivalry. So it just felt different. With Notre Dame, you're talking about a national rivalry. And you talk about, Notre Dame, Newt Rockne, and all of the great players, Joe Montana, and just the history of Notre Dame football and the great players. And then you look at USC and the history of USC football and the players and the great coaches. And it's just like, it all comes together. And I remember Pete Carroll really embraced that. I think every game, when you step on the field, it's just the next opponent, and that's how we approached it. But that feel for that week was always a little different because it always meant something. They were nationally ranked. They were they were a really good football team. You know, we had a goal every year to get to the Rose Bowl, and then also try and get to a national championship game. And they were always in our way. And we always knew it was just going to be a battle. And special, you know, special. That stadium is special. And I'll just say that in that stadium, there's nothing like it in college football. The setting, just, you know, the Notre Dame uniforms, their gold helmets, all of those things. And then you go in the Coliseum at night against Notre Dame, 100,000 people with the fog coming in and the torch lit in the floor. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Like, it's just, there's no better setting, in my opinion, than that moment, you know, and that game. So that's what makes it special. And we took it serious, and we knew how important it was.
Just on the recon, though, this was SC had beaten Notre Dame by exactly 31 points 3 times in a row prior to this matchup. So did that change anything with regard to what you're mentioning?
No. We look, every team is different. Every year is different. You know, we had a strong team in 2002. That was the year, you know, Carson Palmer won the Heisman. I think that was kind of his Heisman moment, beating Notre Dame. In 2003, like I said, I went up there and we beat them pretty handily. We had a great football team in 2003, 2004 at home. You know, again, we were fortunate, and you know, we beat them, and we beat them pretty handedly in those years. But like I said, you know, Brady Quinn was getting better. He was young. He was gaining more experience. Charlie Weiss did a really good job with those football teams. They had a good coaching staff. You know, they had talent, and they were just getting better too. And again, like I said, you know, this is our 3rd year. We won 27 games in a row at that time, 30 games in a row. It was a lot of stress, man. It was like, you know, I'm not complaining, but it was emotional every single week. And we just knew, like, we're going to get their best shot. It doesn't matter what happened last year. Like, scores, it doesn't matter. You know, it's what's going to happen this year. What's this team like, this environment? And like I said, that environment that year was different than I went in 2001. We lost to them in my true freshman year. And it was different in 2003. It was nothing like it.
As you think back and remember, what stood out from the first half of that game?
Sloppy. You know, and it's funny when you look at that game, at least from my viewpoint, I played terrible in that game. I threw a couple interceptions. You know, we made some plays. It really just, it came down to that final drive is when we just made the plays. But collectively, the first half, you know, some sloppiness really on both sides of the football. I think it was, you know, the grass was really long, which I know there's been stories about that, but it was true. It was just a different, everything about that feel of that game was different. And I think we were just trying to feel each other out. I don't know if there were nerves there, but it was just one of those things where, like, okay, this is going to be a battle. You know, we're not going to be able to score 50 points on this team. They're going to move the ball on us because they had a really talented offense. They had a great quarterback. So sloppiness, you know, we didn't execute great, but we always knew that we were a second half football team.
And going into the half down 7, not entirely something you guys were used to at that point in time. So what was Coach Carroll's message? What was his tone at halftime?
You know, it was always the same. And we had been in that situation before. It wasn't very often, but there were a handful of times that year. You know, Arizona State earlier that year, we were down like 17 or something at half. Like, we were getting our butts whipped at Arizona State, who had a good football team. And we just were like, all right, you know, hey guys, let's flip the switch. Let's turn this on in the second half. And we were just always able to do that because Pete Carroll was able to do that. He was great at making adjustments at halftime. And we just always had that mindset where, listen, it doesn't matter what you do in the first half. It matters what you do in the third and the fourth quarter and how you finish a game. And that was something we believed in and we always were able to execute. For this game, a lot of the same. Made some minor adjustments. You know, we knew it was going to be a battle. We knew it was going to be a great football team. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to execute better. We're going to have to find ways to make some plays here to beat this football team, and that's what we were able to do.
How about for you as a team captain? Was this a moment where you said, I need to give a message to the team, or are you typically a pretty quiet, do your own thing halftime guy? How did you approach this one?
I was always a little bit of both. I was never, I was more lead by example for sure. I didn't get into a lot of players. That year I did a little bit more. It was my senior year. We were playing some young guys in certain positions on both sides of the football, and I knew that a lot of the players looked up to me. because I'd been there for so long and just played in a lot of games. So in that moment, I just remember we have to remember we had so much experience on offense that year. Our defense had some growing pains and some younger players playing, but offensively, our O-line, all of our skilled players, we had just won a title the year before with all of those guys. So we were experienced in that huddle. We never felt like could ever get stopped as an offense. That was our mindset. So for me, it was just like, guys, we've been here before. Like it wasn't, we didn't have to kind of like check ourselves and like scramble. We just said, all right, let's go back. Let's get to work, and we're going to find a way to win this game.
So Matt, as you walked up on the 4th and 9, what did you see at the line?
Oh man. Well, we called a timeout. So on the sideline, we were going to call, I still know that the play we called in the huddle was trouble right, 61 Sam, Y option. Trouble right is a 3x1 set, a trip set. 61 Sam is a protection. And then Y option was our tight end, Dominic Bird, getting to the sticks. We're getting a first down and just move the chains. And let's just keep playing. We don't have to try and get a 30-yard game, 40-yard game. We had great athletes. We felt like there was a couple options in this play for me to go to if he wasn't covered. So that was the conversation on the sideline. I remember Steve Sarkisian, who was on the field with me, Lane Kiffin, who was up in the booth. He said, if you get any pressure look, if you get any single high, a blitz look, let's check to 82 stay sluggo, Z win or F win, whatever the formation was, which is a sluggo, a slant and go by our single receiver, which is Dwayne Jarrett, which is who I ended up hitting. And then it's a win route on the opposite side in the slot, which is a seam route essentially. And then you had a hitch on the outside. It was a play that whenever there was doubt, I would check to, because I had Mike Williams for a year. I had Dwayne Jarrett. I had Steve Smith. I had great receivers. And I just had guys that I just knew would go up and get the ball. So it was a bread and butter play for us, so to speak. So I get up. Well, first of all, in the huddle, I remember calling the play, and it was the loudest. It was honestly the loudest I've ever been a part of at that moment. And I remember everyone's looking at me in the huddle, and they're reading my lips, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs to players literally within 6 inches of me. Shovel right 6, I'm like, and I learned 82 stay sluggo. Just watch me at the line. I'm like, and we go up, and again, I will say this, we were so composed. Everyone just got up, they were composed. So I get up to the line of scrimmage, and I'm looking at the safeties, because the safeties are going to tell me kind of if they come down, maybe there's a pressure, and a single high look is really good against that play we were checked to. So I see one of the safeties kind of creeping down, and I'm just like, in that moment, I'm just like, all right. And I gave, this is the signal, little circle route. So I give it to both sides, and you can kind of see on some of the film cuts, like the linemen looking up and see, because they couldn't hear my check. They just had to watch me. The receivers are watching me. So I just check really quick. I take whatever the drop, and Dwayne Jarrett, who's just a phenomenal receiver, runs his little route.
And he was your roommate at the time, right?
He was my roommate, great kid, great friend. And honestly, I threw the ball, and I always say like 3 inches another way, it's an incomplete pass, and it just fell right into his chest, right on the other side of their cornerback. And then obviously he took off, for the 40, 50 yards. But I would say this about that play. We talked about it after. It was so incredible from our stance, all 11 of us knowing, and I'm telling you, like, you couldn't hear a pin drop. I mean, you couldn't hear anything in that huddle, all being on the same page and executing really for what was just a really, a bread and butter play that we had executed 100 times in 2 years. And in that moment, being able to execute all 11 of us was pretty incredible given the moment. So that's kind of how it all unfolded. I took a chance. I thought they were blitzing, and Dwayne made a great play on the outside.
And so now it's 1st and goal. 23 seconds left in the game. You're down 3. You're scrambling left, looking for anything. Do you remember what you were thinking in that moment?
Yeah, terrible play. So 1st and goal. At this point, we're feeling pretty confident we're going to get in the end zone. 1st and goal right there inside the 5. And we come up in an empty set. And they immediately, I think they're playing cover 0, and they're gonna pressure and bring more than we can block. So I knew that I'm gonna have to throw hot, or I'm gonna have to make a play quickly, or just throw the ball away, and live to play another down. So I remember, and the play wasn't actually a great play call against press man-to-man coverage. So I remember taking the snap, and their outside linebacker kind of shot in, and I was able to get around the corner. And at that time, and what I'm so mad about it myself is like, I kind of pride myself on being a pretty good athlete over the years, is like, dude, just jump over the guy and jump in the end zone. But in that moment, I'm trying, my first instinct is always to pass, look for a guy to pass and then tuck and run. And when you look back, I gave effort. I really should have tried to jump over and extend the ball of the goal line. And I just kind of like tucked it and went over, and then the ball, they knocked the ball out of bounds, like at the 1 or the 2 yard line. So at that point, I'm thinking, and you couldn't hear the whistle, and you see on the game tape, the ref, going like this. So stopping the clock, out of bounds, whatever, the ball fell out of bounds. I didn't know that at the time. So I'm kind of getting up, and I'm thinking like, I don't know what happened. I was like, I fumbled, we lost. Like, I didn't see the ball roll out. I got up, and I see everyone starting to celebrate, and I'm just thinking, I just lost the game for us. That was my initial thought. And then I'm looking at the refs on the sideline, and they're all kind of congregating. And then, okay, the ball is out of bounds, and I can tell that they said, okay, it's out of bounds, so stop the clock. And then I was like, okay. And then I remember Notre Dame, I think Charlie Weiss, they all like stormed the field, and it was just mayhem for like 5 minutes. But even in that time, I went to the side. I was confident. All right, we're going to get the ball back, and we're going to be able to, to call another play.
So, do you remember when all the fans were running on the field? So, it was the players, but you had the fans, maybe some media. Your band was right there. Is it just a blur?
It was so chaotic. Like it was a blur. That whole game, I remember vividly. I can remember all these plays, but it was also such a blur because of the emotion that went into that game, and obviously how we won and afterward. But in that moment, I just remember getting up and like what just happened in my mind. Like, I had no clue. I didn't know the ball. I didn't know where the ball went. I just thought I fumbled. I thought maybe I crossed the goal line before I fumbled. I didn't. When I saw everyone storming the field, I'm like, oh, like we just lost. Like, there goes our national championship. Like, there was like a range of emotions going through my mind in literally like a 10-second period. And then it kind of started to calm down, obviously, as the refs talked about it, and they kicked everyone off the field, and they said, all right, the clock's going to stop, and all of those things.
Mm-hmm. So they clear the field, and you see Pete Carroll, basically the clock stops, right? Because it's, the refs are giving this, ball's out of bounds, ball bounces out of bounds, but Pete Carroll is giving the spike signal. So what is that code for?
All right, so we get up, and we knew once they set the ball and they, then they blow the whistle, the clock's going to run. And I think there was 8 seconds left. So in that time where everyone was trying to figure out everything, we had to call a play, and we had to be ready to jump up to the line of scrimmage, call a play, and then, and then take a knee, do whatever we got to do, and then, call another play. So when we're all kind of just congregating there on the field, I look to the sideline, and we're not too far away on that point, and I go like this. I give him the little finger point. And for us, that was like a quarterback sneak, because I was gonna spike the ball, stop the clock, huddle up, and call one play to try and win. That was the whole plan. But when I go like this, that means, hey, do you want me to sneak it? Like, that was our code. Because when we spiked the football, our offensive line always blocked quarterback wedge, no matter what. No matter what I was going to do, they would always wedge block because they didn't know what I was going to do. So it was always built in regardless. So in that moment, I was like kind of to myself doing this, and you can see him. He kind of goes like this, and then he starts, because he knew me better than anyone. He knew I was going for it. So he starts going like this. Just, I think maybe their defense sees what they're going to do. Maybe one guy is just kind of taking a play off. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I remember my line is standing up in front of me, and I'm kind of talking, and Reggie's right behind me. And I go to the side, and I said, hey, dude, like, what should I do? I think I'm going to sneak it. Like, I literally said that, and he's like, I got you. That's what he said. I got you. And I'm getting goosebumps again just thinking about the play. So I come up to the line. We're kind of just hanging there waiting for the ref to drop the ball. blow the whistle and it's on. And I'm just sitting there and I see like Tom Zibikowski. I see like, it felt like 100 defenders right over the center. And I'm thinking like, this is not going to go well if I, like, what am I doing? I just said, screw it, man, I'm going for it. And I snapped the ball and, you know, and again, I think I had like 6 touchdowns on quarterback sneaks all year. So we'd done it a lot. We were on the half-yard line. This was a little bit of a different feel, obviously. But
no timeouts, right? No timeouts. So if you don't get this.
Yeah, and if we lose, like, everything's gone. Like, the whole season, like, you know. So I snap the ball. I kind of go in. I do naturally I spun like a little pirouette, and that's when Reggie pushed me in across the goal line. I had no clue how I got in. I didn't feel him in that moment because, you know, there's a lot of bodies on you. And all I remember is crossing the goal line and getting up, and Ryan Khalil, my center, who's going to be a Hall of Fame NFL player, just retired, he's bear hugging me, and I'm just sitting here like talk about, like, I had no idea what happened. It was like one of those things where it was just so crazy. Our sideline's going nuts. And I remember going to the sideline and sitting down and like putting my hands on my helmet, and someone was saying, yeah. I'm like, it's not over. It's not over. Like, I just, like, it was one of those games where like they had a chance to return a kick. There was like 3 seconds left. I'm like, it's not over. I'm not excited yet. I'm not excited. And sure enough, we tackled them. And it was like, honestly, it was like the biggest weight lifted off my shoulders, really just the team. It was by far and away the most emotional I had ever been about a game, even including the Texas game, you know, that we lost. Like, the stress and emotion in that football game and how it ended, it's just, there's nothing like it. Like, it was, I'll remember, like, guys were crying, like the tear of, like, so exhausted and emotional that you had like that one tear falling down your face. Like, it was just, it was unbelievable. And then how we lost, you know, like, kind of 2 iconic plays, you know, the 4th and 9 is an iconic play in USC football history. The Bush push is literally, like, you know, it's labeled, everyone knows that play, you know. So really special. Like I said, that game was incredible. Could have won anyway, any of our ways. And, you know, we fought till the end and we were able to pull it out.
So what the hell was the plane ride home like after a game like that?
Honestly, we probably were all sleeping. When I tell you, like, we were so emotionally drained, like, we were so emotionally drained. There was no other game like that in my career. Like, we were just, it was like the pinnacle of, like, all the games we had won. We're just trying to scratch and claw. We want to get to another championship game. Everyone's trying to give us our best shot. And a couple weeks later, we played Fresno State, who almost beat us. In that back and forth thriller of a game. But I remember, like, we were just thankful to get out of there with a win. I remember the next day, I went in the office, or it was Monday. I went in Monday with Sarkisian. We watched the film, just us two. And, like, I was just telling my coach, like, I'm starting to feel this. You know, I'd won the Heisman the year before. The expectation, I will always put a lot of pressure on myself to go out there and play really well. And I didn't play well in that game. You know, the last couple of plays, sure, made some plays, but that game I didn't play well. And I just was feeling the pressure. And we had a great conversation, just changing perspective and understanding what we were trying to do. And then we held a team meeting that day, players only meeting. And again, we were, mid-October. So we were like 6 or 7-0 at the time, #1 team. We were just like, we were all feeling it. Like, the players, all the leaders stood up and said, like, we need to start, you know, we need to kind of regroup here, because we weren't playing our best football in that time. And I think the next week was Washington, and we kind of started having fun again, I guess it would be the right term. So to your question, like, I don't know if we really enjoyed it. I think we were just happy to escape because we were feeling the pressure big time that season.
Yeah, well, Matt, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you bringing one of the greatest games in the history of college football back to life for all of us. Thank you for your time, and stay safe out there.
Of course, man. Thanks, buddy. You too.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.